What's up, everybody? Hey, Max. Hey, Sean. Miss Massingale, this is Mr. John Bradford. He's coming in to speak today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll give everybody one more minute and we can get going. Let's see. All right. Well, all right. I can just admit people as they come in and they can come in. I think I put it on mute so when they come in, they'll be fine. All right, well, hey everyone, I'm Garson if you don't already know me, and thanks for coming to the meeting. We have a special guest today, Mr. John Bradford. He's actually our district representative for the North Carolina Congress, and he's made some time for us today to come in and talk about some of his businesses he's up and started, and kind of teach us a little more about entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial world. So the floor is yours, Mr. Bradford. I think you might be frozen. Let's see. Can you hear us? You would think they would have better Wi-Fi at the Capitol, right?
Yeah, well, it's government. Welcome to government. I just switched to my own hotspot, so maybe this will be better.
Okay, yeah, we can hear
you. Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, yeah, so it's not, the problem is because I'm using my personal laptop, I'm not on the secure internet. They don't let us do that, so I'm having to use the generally available version, so that's probably why it's not as good.
Gotcha. All right, well, if you just kind of want to start talking about your experiences and what you found helpful and how you really got into entrepreneurship, and the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, first of all, Garson, thanks for reaching out. And let me just say, if it starts breaking up, I can stop my video, and that way I don't gobble up as much, bandwidth. So if it's acting all weird, just raise your hand and I'll do that. Okay. Okay, so, all right, so hey everybody, my name's John Bradford. I am coming to you from Raleigh. Raleigh, of course, is our capital here in North Carolina, and this is my office. I'm sitting here. Wish I could give you a 360 tour, but I just finished a meeting. I'm a senior finance chair, so working on tax policy for North Carolina. So I just finished a 2-hour tax policy meeting, and I have to be here at 7 in the morning for more tax policy stuff. The reason I'm on finance is because I think of my background as a business owner. I'm not, a little bit about me, I'm not an attorney. We have a lot of lawyers here in Raleigh, and I am not one of them. And while I have nothing against attorneys, I believe we need business-minded lawmakers who understand what it is like to start a business and run a business. And we'll let the attorneys write the fancy language, but we need someone to communicate the policies that we need at the street level, the ground level, right, for employees and for employers, et cetera. I live in the Lake Norman area, so I serve in the House of Representatives. I'm not in Washington, D.C. I get called a congressman a lot. I'm not a congressman. I'm actually I'm a state representative. So I represent Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson in the House of Representatives. We have a little civics lesson, just real quick. We have 120 House members across all of North Carolina, and so I'm one of them. I have 4 children. I have a senior in high school, a sophomore, and then I have twin girls who are 8th graders. So just to give you a little bit about, my family. I studied, all my life I have been, I've been a hardworking kid, probably I'm a big kid now, I guess is why I'd characterize myself. But all my life, I was always doing something to make money. whether it be cutting grass, whether it be, a lemonade stand, selling used things at flea markets. I've made birdhouses. I've done a lot of things to just, try to generate money, and I've always done it using my own money. And so I am if there was ever a definition of an entrepreneur, I am definitely, I am one. I think a lot of people use that word loosely. To me, an entrepreneur is someone that not only has the idea, then actually tries and executes against their idea. And I was telling Garson, we had the chance to connect, kind of before this call, not today, but a week or two, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I was just explaining how I have a lot of people that come up to me and say, oh, you're so lucky. And, I have this great idea and blah, blah, blah. And then I always stop them and say, well, let's talk about being lucky. I work very hard to be lucky. I work very, very hard to be lucky. And trust me, luck, there is such a thing as luck. You can go to a casino and bet on red and win, and you can also lose. But I always challenge them and say, well, what'd you do about your idea? And a lot of people have great ideas, but then they never do anything with it. And I think that's the difference between like a real entrepreneur and then someone who wants to be an entrepreneur. A wannabe entrepreneur is someone that has all the ideas, but then they don't know how to either go pursue it, or they're not confident enough, maybe in their idea, or they're not confident enough in themselves, or whatever it may be, to pursue it. And that's, I think, the difference between, I would say, me and a lot of other people that I know. So I'll give you a little bit about my background. I told you I was just a hardworking kid. I come from pretty humble beginnings. I grew up in a house that is half the size of my basement in my current home. So just to put that in perspective, my basement, half of it is the size home that I grew up in, with a mother and a father, a dog, a cat, and a sister. And I never thought it was small. I never thought it was anything. It was home. And so, there's the old saying, a fish grows to the size of its environment, the fishbowl syndrome. So I never knew my house was small. I never thought my house was big. To me, it was just home. And it was a very humble home, but it was a safe home. And it was a home where my mom and dad taught me the value of hard work, the value of a hand up versus a hand out. Handouts, can be great, but they can be dangerous, because then when you get a handout, you expect another handout, and eventually the handout stops. So a hand up is different, though. It's when you need a little helping hand, whether it be a mentor, someone to nudge you along. And so I think I truly understood those differences growing up. I studied engineering. Well, first of all, like all of you must be very talented and very much thought leaders to even be in this club. The fact that you're in a club that's thinking about entrepreneurship tells me a lot about you. And of course, your teacher, Ms. Massengale, thank you for helping lead this class. It's wonderful that you do this. So you're already a step ahead. You're already a step ahead, maybe 2 steps ahead of everybody else. So, and that's where I was. I was always the kid that I felt like was a step or 2 ahead of everybody else. Not like in thinking, oh, I was better than them. I don't mean it that way. I just mean I was always thinking ahead. I was thinking about how am I going to move my life ahead and do it in a way that I could control, because some things you cannot control. The pandemic would be a great example. We can't control that, but you can control what you do with your own lives. And I was always the kid that was I was the class officer. I was, in clubs like this. I was working at age 14 because minimum wage when I was 14 was $2.15 an hour, which sounds so ridiculous.
I think you're breaking up a little bit, or it might just be me. Can you hear him, Jack?
No, I cannot.
Can I hear me?
Okay, we got you now. Maybe, all right, there you go.
Yeah, I stopped my video. I was just saying that I was pretty much just a kid that worked hard. I didn't want to get in trouble. My mom worked at the school, so I didn't have a choice. I didn't want to make Mama Bradford mad. But I went to a public high school. We had 2,000 kids. I went to a very big school, public high school. And then I went to college, and I went to Clemson University. So, obviously Clemson has had some great football years. They were not all that great when I was there, but I studied engineering. And I studied engineering because I was always good at math and science. And so I thought that's where I should go, be an engineer. So I studied engineering. I went to ExxonMobil, which is everyone I'm sure has heard of ExxonMobil. They're a big gasoline, petroleum company. They do natural gas, oil, petroleum, you name it. So I worked for those guys as an environmental engineer. But I wasn't satisfied because I didn't want fixed earnings. And you'll hear me talk about fixed earnings. Fixed earnings are just that. It's like predictable earnings, and you know what your salary is. You always know what your salary is. And, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some people can budget off fixed earnings, and they know every year they're going to get a 2% increase, and that's going to live their life off of that. I wanted more, though. I didn't want just fixed earnings. I wanted unlimited earnings potential. And what I mean by that is I wanted to be in an environment where the more I work, the harder I work, the more I could make. And a lot of jobs out there don't give you that means because they're salaried roles and they have fixed earnings. And so I wanted to try something different outside of engineering. And so I went back and got an executive MBA degree, and I got into sales. And sales is where you can make a lot of money, but it's also where you can crash and burn, because there's an old saying, no risk, no reward. And in sales, most of the time your salary is very low, but your commissionable income is very high. And think about a company. If you're going to have employees and they're in sales, wouldn't you rather pay them commissions for their performance, meaning the more they sell of your product, the more you pay them. And if they don't sell very much, you don't pay them very much. That's a symbiotic relationship that sales typically offers the employer and the employee. So I wanted to go into the field of sales because I felt like I could, with my work ethic, I thought maybe I could just make a lot of money doing what I do best, which is work hard and try to make more friends than enemies, which is always a good rule of thumb, by the way. And so I went to IBM Corporation and worked for IBM for 10 years in sales. And I sold, and I never stopped working because I wanted to just try to be as successful as I could, because I was looking for seed money to go do my own company, because you have to have capital to start your own company. And capital can come from loans. It can come from loans from a family. I didn't really have that. My parents, they didn't really have the means to loan me money. I didn't come from wealth, so I didn't have a trust fund or anything to pull from. So I had to go make my own money to start my own endeavors. And one thing, if you're going to start a business, cash is king. That is a saying you may hear, maybe you haven't heard, but cash is always king, folks. Those who have cash always are in a better position, because when you have cash, you have the ability to make very quick decisions and deals that come up. If you don't have cash right then to buy a deal, you can't wait a week to go see if you can get a loan. So having access to cash, and when I say cash, I don't mean necessarily green money in my hands, just meaning liquidity. Having money available to me at a moment's notice was very important to me. So I worked at IBM for 10 years. And I saved a lot of money. I'm like a little chipmunk. I am a frugal guy. Now, I don't buy generic Coca-Cola. I buy Diet Coke. I'm a Diet Coke guy. I buy Diet Coke when it's on sale. There's a difference than buying it full price. I'm still buying Diet Coke, by the way. I just buy it on sale. So I use coupons. I mean, I am the guy that your school probably has some coupon card that you guys sold at some point to raise money. I use your coupon cards. I use those to get discounts. I would love to give to your school through your card program, which I do, but I'm doing it because I may pay $10 for your card, but I'm going to go get $30 worth of value out of that card because I'm going to use it over and over and over. And to me, that is something that's in my blood. Like I just, I go and buy used cars. I can buy any car I want. I can, but I still go buy used cars because I just have this mentality that I don't need to buy something new. I want something nice, but I can buy nice used versus nice new. So that's something in my bones, in my blood. So I left IBM after 10 years and I started my own company. Oh, it says Garson, give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we got you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I really apologize for the internet connection here. So I started a company with my IBM savings. So remember, I told you I was in sales, and I hoarded my money like a chipmunk because I wanted to use that money to help me get my first company started. And so I started a company, and I don't mind sharing with you, I started my company 7 years while I was at 10 years at IBM. So do the math. I stayed at IBM 10 years, but I started my company 7 years of my IBM career. So for the first 3 years at IBM, I was dedicated to IBM only. But on year 4, I said, you know what, I'm gonna go start a little side hustle. Now, IBM didn't care because I was doing something completely not in conflict and something that did not take away from my ability to perform at IBM. Because, you know, I wouldn't want to hurt my employer. I would never suggest that. And IBM didn't care because I was performing. I was meeting my numbers in sales. So I was working 2 jobs. On Saturdays and Sundays, I was hustling real estate. On Monday through Friday, I was hustling IBM products and services. And I did that for 7 years. Now, why did I do that? Because I needed to make sure I could afford to leave IBM. And the only way I was going to ever be able to leave IBM was to be able to have something going already that could, because I had a wife, I had 2 children at the time, and I didn't want to, I was a provider, so I had to remain that. So after 7 years of burning both ends of the candle, I finally left IBM and gave 120% to my company. And we did management of rental houses. So I love real estate. I started buying rentals, and I grew that company from 0 employees to our highest, maybe 35, 40 employees at one point in time. And I did it all right in Lake Norman. And it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. I grew that company. I still, this is not, I guess it's not true anymore. I sold the company December 31st. I still own a part of it, but I don't own it exclusively. And the reason I did that is because 4 years ago, you see this little icon, it looks like a little dog in a magnifying glass. I had this idea to start a new company, a software tech platform. I will tell you, software and technology is where there's a lot of money out there. Now, it's also where there's a high rate of failure because, trust me, not every software idea is a good idea, and software is very expensive to start. But think of your big apps, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all these things that you guys use on a daily basis perhaps. These companies started with an idea. 4 years ago, I had an idea to start a software tech company called Pet Screening. And I'll give you 10 seconds on it. If you're going to live in an apartment and you have a dog or a cat, my company screens the dog or cat for the apartment provider. That's what we do. Very simple. But no one had ever done this before, ever. This was the first product of its kind in the entire rental housing industry. So while I was serving in the General Assembly, which is where I am right now, not only did I have my other company, Park Avenue, which I still owned 4 years ago, but I started this company. So now I had 2 things going. Once again, I've always been this guy that has 2 things going, 2 irons in the fire. So I started this other company, and I used my proceeds from Park Avenue to help me pay my bills while I took all the other money and invested it into pet screening. And that's how I grew my business, because I've never, ever overextended myself. And what I mean by that is, if you guys earn an allowance from your parents, or if you have a side job, also, I never overspent what I had in the bank, because that would not be fiscally responsible. In fact, then that's a bad habit if you have that. I would encourage you not to do that. That $6 latte at Starbucks sounds really good, but let me tell you something. You can go to McDonald's and probably get it for $2 and save yourself $4. That's the way I think. And maybe it's not the Starbucks cup, but I don't really care. If I want coffee, I don't even drink coffee, so I'm using a bad example, but you get my point. So I did 2 jobs at my own companies, almost like competing against each other. But I was using one as leverage to get the other one going. And now, Pet Screening, 4 years later, I have 30 employees. We're doing business in 50 states, all 50 states. We're moving into a new facility. The value of Pet Screening on a business valuation is almost 9 times what my other company is worth. 9 times. But I only started it 4 years ago. My other company I have had for 14 years. The point is, I have always tried to take something and turn it into something bigger. but I've worked immensely hard for it. And so today, pet screening is kind of my latest and greatest business idea that is working well, and we're growing like crazy. And neither one of these companies did I buy them from someone. Neither one of these companies did I inherit them from someone. I started these companies at zero. And when I mean zero, I mean the ground, like zero. Like I opened a bank account, I started the name, I went and got a federal ID number. I, had one employee and then two employees and so on. So along with that, though, comes a lot of really ideas that didn't work out. And I've got those too. I have ideas that did not work out. I invested in a locksmith business because I was in the rental business. And locksmithing is not a very sexy thing, right? Locksmith, who wants to be a locksmith? But in the world of rentals, every time someone moves in and out, you have to get the property rekeyed. And so there was this a company out of Texas that had this formula for rekeying properties and doing it in a hurry, and they were growing across the country. So I invested in 5 locations with them to not only service my own company, which made a lot of sense to me, because I'm going to serve it. If I'm going to hire a locksmith, because believe it or not, we hire a lot of locksmiths in property management. Well, I might as well just feed my own company, right, that I own or part owner. But my point is that did not go well. In fact, it went terribly. It was a terrible investment. I lost a substantial amount of money, and I learned a lesson. And my lesson was I invested in a company that was being run by someone else. I invested in it, counting on them, but they did not work the same level that I work. They did not push to the same level that I push. And what I learned was if I'm going to hook my train to somebody or someone else, they better have the same engine in their locomotive that I do. And unfortunately, this guy did not. He spread himself too thin. He tried to do all kinds of businesses, and he would open up, he had locksmiths, and then he started opening up a shop to outfit the locksmith trucks. And then he started opening up the company to print the decals that went on the vehicles. And then he said, well, I'm going to get into the business that makes the stickers that goes to the decals. He was just trying to go so vertical that he spread himself too thin. And he should have just stayed focused on one thing, which was, guess what? Locksmithing. Because he lost his locksmith business because he was too distracted trying to do everything else. And there's an old saying, I would rather be an expert at one or two things than be good at a lot of things. And I think you have to decide, do you just want to be known as being good? Do you want to be do you want to be good at this, good at that, good at this? Or do you want to be an expert at something and be like the known resource? And I will always choose to be the known resource. Like, let me be, if I'm going to do something, folks, I want to be as the best I can be at it. And you can only do so many things. And he tried to do a lot of things. And I couldn't stop him because it was his business. I was just an investor in it. But it went down, and I lost $300,000. I don't mind sharing that. I lost $300,000. And so 300 grand is a lot of money. We could all think of a lot of things we can do with $300,000. But I share that with you because being an entrepreneur is not always about winning. Sometimes you're going to lose, but it's how you react to losing your money and how you recover from that really will, I think, define who you are. And losing, I just mean bad investments or a bad deal. Every successful business owner has a story or two about something they tried that did not go well. And if they don't, then they're probably not being honest, right? They probably just aren't telling you the truth. And maybe there's someone who just got one idea and it was great and it went awesome, but they would be an exception to the rule, for sure. So, it's important to share with you that while I've had 2 immensely successful companies that I have truly started from ground zero, and successful is in the eyes of the beholder. I am not an Adam Zuckerberg. I am not Elon Musk. Those guys are wealthy beyond recognition, okay? But wealth is measured in a lot of things. While I've talked to you a lot about money, and money is very important to me because that's how I pay the bills and provide for my family. I also have an amazing quality of life. I can work remote. I can be in the line at Walt Disney World with my children on my telephone, working because my business gives me the ability to do that. But if I was working in a factory, I can't be remote because I have to be on the line, putting the screw in the hole or tying this cable or whatever it may be. And while I'm not critical of those roles, because we need those, I just wanted the freedom to do what I wanted to do, which is why I wanted to go start my own businesses. So, but I've made missteps, I've made mistakes, but they've always been honest and in earnest, meaning I thought it was a good idea and it didn't. I've competed in inventors contests. I have gone on TV. It was PBS, by the way, so not like mainstream TV. But I have gone on a station to compete in an inventors contest. So I am a guy that really goes for it. And I just hope all of you take away today that if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to have ideas, it'll be the hardest thing you ever do, but it'll also be the most fun thing you ever do. And I don't mind working hard as long as I'm having fun. I have to have fun too. And it's not always like going to an amusement park fun. Fun is the art of watching your idea turn into something. That's fun. It's fun every time I pay payroll to know that I'm paying 30 people and creating their livelihoods. But all that said, I will be quiet and see if you have any questions about me. I don't want to pontificate on you, but those are things that I wanted to share with you, and I hope you got something out of it.
No, thank you. That was perfect. It's really like it means a lot that you came in and kind of talked about stuff that we don't really hear a lot, especially as kids and in schools, and we're not really out there the way you've been. So it really helps a lot for you to come and speak. And like, it really hits hard when you say like, you have to really work hard to be lucky. Very few people are lucky. They just come out and swing, but working hard, like you said, is really what gets you to be lucky,
It's true. It's absolutely true. And I am quite sure all of you, again, by virtue of being on this call, that you all must have an interest in business. And I just think it's important to leave the impression upon you that it does not come without hard work. But if you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to stay at it, even when it doesn't go well. I mean, you've heard of pivot. Businesses have pivoted. All business pivot. I mean, you have to be ready. Imagine all the businesses that had to pivot with the pandemic. You have to be nimble, you have to be quick on your feet, and you have to be ready to change, and you got to go for it, and you can't look back. And if you make a mistake, well, just make sure the next one isn't a repeating the same mistake. And if you do those things fundamentally, then you have the right recipe for success. The only next thing you have to do is have a good idea. And let me tell you something. You don't have to have like a new idea to be successful. If you want to be a damn plumber and be the best plumber that's around, as silly as that sounds, next time you're on TV or watching TV and you see a commercial from Mr. Jenkins or something like that, these are skilled laborers who have turned it into a monster business. I mean, there is a lot of money to be made in skilled services because it's a very labor-intensive industry. But if you can figure out how to get the right labor force and the right model, you don't have to go invent how to install a toilet a different way. The same way you put a toilet in last year as 10 years ago. The difference is, though, you're figuring out the way to do it more efficient. You're figuring out a way to be more customer service savvy, and you're trying to cut costs to do it for a better price. And you can still have a very successful business, but you're still just a plumber. So it doesn't always have to be something so unique. To me, it's just being good at what you do, being excellent at what you do.
Right, being an expert at that one thing rather than being good at it a lot, like you said.
Yep.
Does anyone else have a question they want to ask?
Yeah, I have something I could ask. Mr. Bradford, if we were to take our club and develop a product or a service or something to kind of like run a business, take what we hear from people like you and incorporate it into our own business, what advice would you give us?
Well, I would say understand your audience. Don't be too narrowly tailored. Some people have some great ideas because it's typically what they love. So I'm gonna totally make up an example. If you're a surfer and you love surfing and you have this idea for surfboards because you think this idea on your surfboard, if you just add this one more fin, it's going to really pick up speed and it's going to, whatever it's going to be, give you more balance, all that. Just know your audience. How many surfers are out there going to buy your product? Yeah. Can you sell them to every surfer out there? Sure. But how many surfers are there? So you know your audience of what you want to do and what you want to sell. And so the broader your audience, the more earnings potential, meaning the more applicable it is to everyone, then the more successful you could be. But if you tailor it very narrowly and you are only going after a very certain demographic, then just be prepared for the results on that. I mean, you can have the best new fin in the world and be on every surfer magazine about that, and that's a wonderful personal accomplishment, and you'll make some money, but I don't know if that's the business that you want to grow, because does the rest of the world care about a surf fin? I could care less. I just totally made that up, but I could see something like that. So I just think broadly about your idea, and don't overdo it. Like there's the KISS principle. If you ever go to business school, I imagine they still talk about the KISS. It's KISS, 2 S's. It's keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid. If you just Google KISS, KISS, you'll see that. It's been around. That little thing has been around for a long time. Your parents have probably heard of it. But I always think about the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. I'm not saying people are not smart. I believe everyone has a brain and they can do great things. But for the most part, people, they're simple-minded. They're just doing their thing. So keep it simple where people can get your idea very quickly, very fast. Because if you have to take 30 minutes to explain it, Shark Tank. I have to believe many of you on this call watch Shark Tank. And they'll always tell you on Shark Tank, if you can't get your idea out in 30 seconds or a minute, chances are it's complicated. So I would say watch your audience, keep it simple, and then cost. Who is it affordable? Whatever it is, if you're selling a product or a service, be competitive, know your market, know your competitors. Those are things that I would give anyone advice to, whether it's a high school club or an experienced entrepreneur for that matter. I hope that answers your question, Jack.
Yeah, that's great. If anybody else has a question, feel free to message me and Garson, or just blurt it out yourself.
Yeah, I'm sure after this meeting, once we, if we post it, and by the way, is it okay, Mr. Bradford, if we have screen recorded and post this to the rest of the student body? Okay.
Go for it.
All right. And I have one last. Go ahead.
I was going to say I've not disclosed the nuclear code, so we're good.
Okay. Good. And I have one last question. I thought of it during when you were talking. Would you take it back investing in that locksmith company? Or what would you do differently about that?
Yeah. I don't, I live my life with no regrets. And I try to follow we all have that gut instinct, Garson. And I've gone against my gut instinct. And that usually is not fared out very well. So I think your gut instinct is important. I can't honestly say that I had a gut instinct not to do the locksmith business, but I did have gut checks during that journey, and I ignored them, and I kept putting money in, thinking that it would get better, and it didn't. So, I would say I learned a lot, and to me, 300 grand is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't hold me down. I just look at it as that's just a life learning lesson, and away I go to the next one. If you have a loss, the good news is if you have a loss, you can use your loss and use that against taxes for deductibility, but you don't get the dollar. You don't get the dollar for dollar loss. So you're not going to recover all your money. And you sure as hell wouldn't make a bad investment just for the purpose of getting a tax. But at least I wouldn't do that. Maybe there is some crazy strategy out there for such a thing, but not that I would be aware of. So I don't think I would change it, but I think I would probably pinch myself or knock myself on the head and say, okay, your gut is saying, get your arms around this because you're just putting money into a hole here. And I probably should have followed that, but I was so busy. I was letting him run it. I was just writing him a check every month, funding the capital. And I should have stopped and said, wait a second, why is this not going well? And I was running too hard looking at my other, because, this wasn't my core competency. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone else has any more questions, feel free to ask them now, or ask me, email me or Jack, and we'll be in touch with Mr. Bradford. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really apologize for the internet. I hope you guys got something out of it. And
no worries.
Raleigh, come see me in Raleigh. I'll give you a tour of the Capitol. Well, the Capitol's closed. I'll give you